that we are living through. In this journey, we have focused as much on addressing the business ecosystem as we have on celebrating life.
আবিষ্কার খাবার এই যে ইনিশিয়েটিভটা, এটা আপনারা সকলে দেখতেই পাচ্ছেন প্রায় উৎসবে পরিণত হয়েছে এবং এটাই আমাদের ইচ্ছে ছিল যে এত ধরনের মানুষ, এত ধরনের খাবার, এত ধরনের রান্না বান্না প্রত্যেক দিন এরা করে এবং এদের কোনো স্বীকৃতি নেই সেই অর্থে। হ্যাঁ, আমরা জানি যে আবিষ্কারায় খুব ভালো খাবার পাওয়া যায়, কিন্তু আজকে সাধারণ মানুষ সবাই বাইরে থেকে এসে সবাই মিলে খাচ্ছে। বেঙ্গল চেম্বার অফ কমার্স থেকে এই ইনিশিয়েটিভটা আমরা নিতে পেরেছি, তার জন্য খুব ভালো লাগছে এবং সাধারণ মানুষ এইভাবে সাড়া দিয়েছেন, তার জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
What do you find when you dig deep into the depths of the earth? We found a few rare elements, like commitment, compassion, a passion for perfection, and a vision for a stronger and better tomorrow. That is NMDC. It's not just a pioneering story of one of the world's finest iron ore producers, but a story of leadership with a human touch. From the depths of the earth to the bottom of hearts, NMDC has touched lives all around, creating wealth, building sustainable opportunities, and working towards impacting lives positively. NMDC, harnessing Earth's goodness.
We are all products of our time. Never perhaps such words collectively meant their truest as the times that we live through now. Never before in living memory of its 187 years of existence has the Bengal Chamber witnessed a world so united in crisis, created not by wars but by the global susceptibility to a virus of pandemic proportions. Yet, your chamber, as an institution and as a business collective, has worked and stood through unprecedented times brought forth by the viral pandemic and the devastating super cyclone, rallying all of us not only towards survival, but equipping us in being ready for life and business in the next normal. Just as Tagore said, if you cry because the sun has gone out of your life, your tears will prevent you from seeing the stars. The need is to adopt sustainability, adapt new measures, and practice the new economics of innovation-led progress to turn over a new leaf. Again, as the poet said, you can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. And so, we got down to work. The Chamber's yardstick of operations is usually measured by the number, relevance, and contextuality of its programs and activities. If a chest full of 110 events puts the stamp on quantity, the qualitative aspects of our program-led and results-oriented activities are certified by the way they have been received by the audience, professionals, and stakeholders.
We are moving from a consumer era to a post-consumer era. I mean, we had excesses in our lives, in our behavior, in our spending. But now we are all going to look towards for health and a better balance in what we are going to do.
We are doing certain things in order to be part of the region, but not adequate. It's not making the impact because a lot of this is G2G, government to government, not enough P2P, people to people, and certainly not enough B2B, business to business. And relationships today in the modern world are less and less about G2G. They are more and more about B2B and P2P.
So we want to have a national depository of knowledge, national practice for each and every item which is being imported in this country.
We are hoping to advance 5 key campaigns to support the reduction of emissions. We want to support a campaign on the transition to clean energy, and India is leading the world in many ways with its 450 gigawatts commitment on solar energy. The switch to clean transport, and I think there are huge opportunities for India to lead this work in this sector, particularly for 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. A campaign on nature-based solutions to demonstrate how mangroves like Sundarban can not only, protecting mangroves like the Sundarban can not only help protect communities and help them be more resilient to the effects of climate change, but can also help serve as a carbon sink to mitigate climate change itself. Work on adaptation and resilience, which is particularly important in neighbouring Bangladesh, for example, and other low-lying areas prone to flooding. And then underpinning all of that, work on finance.
2 principal focus areas, especially during this time, are people and health. On both, the Chamber has communicated learnings, best practices, and even advisories over and over again to the community at large, going much beyond the immediate business fraternity.
The concept of herd immunity is when you have random spread of a factor and there is 60 to 70% of individuals who are unable to be affected by that factor, that constitutes herd immunity. And if we're all people and the virus infects people, then whether it's a herd in the US or a herd in India, the herd is the herd, right? It's worldwide, but the development and the speed with which immunity develops, that is locally dependent, right? So wherein we in the United States have taken social distancing in some areas to heart, and people have been in their homes for weeks, herd immunity is actually developing very slowly, but in those areas, infection rates are going down. We recognize that eventually we will develop 70% of people who are immune. And that will allow us to save lives, not just because you infect less people per se, but it's because the resources to treat those people become available when they get infected.
Life goes on. Setbacks are always temporary. We fall because we can pick ourselves up again. The Chamber believes that lives and livelihoods are and will be the defining features of this normal that we are living through. In this journey, we have focused as much on addressing the business ecosystem as we have on celebrating life.
আপিসপাড়ার খাবার এই যে ইনিশিয়েটিভটা, এটা আপনারা সকলে দেখতেই পাচ্ছেন প্রায় উৎসবে পরিণত হয়েছে এবং এটাই আমাদের ইচ্ছে ছিল যে এত ধরনের মানুষ, এত ধরনের খাবার, এত ধরনের রান্নাবান্না প্রত্যেক দিন এরা করে এবং এদের কোনো স্বীকৃতি নেই সেই অর্থে। হ্যাঁ, আমরা জানি যে আপিসপাড়ায় খুব ভালো খাবার পাওয়া যায়, কিন্তু আজকে সাধারণ মানুষ সবাই বাইরে থেকে এসে সবাই মিলে খাচ্ছে। বেঙ্গল চেম্বার অফ কমার্স থেকে এই ইনিশিয়েটিভটা আমরা নিতে পেরেছি, তার জন্য খুব ভালো লাগছে এবং সাধারণ মানুষ এইভাবে সাড়া দিয়েছেন, তার জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
What do you find when you dig deep into the depths of the earth? We found a few rare elements, like commitment, compassion, a passion for perfection, and a vision for a stronger and better tomorrow. That is NMDC. It's not just a pioneering story of one of the world's finest iron ore producers, but a story of leadership with a human touch. From the depths of the earth to the bottom of hearts, NMDC has touched lives all around, creating wealth, building sustainable opportunities, and working towards impacting lives positively. NMDC, harnessing Earth's goodness.
We are delighted to bring you Minerals Mining and Metal Sea Conclave Day 2 with the theme on Indian steel industry facing the challenges of new normal and beyond. May I request Mr. Abraham Stephanos, President Designate the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to formally open the opening session of Day 2 with his address. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you to the second day of the Minerals, Mining and Metals E-Conclave organized by the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The theme for this year is preparedness for post-COVID revival and global play. Contrary to the fear expressed in the first quarter, the steel industry has recovered smartly in the second quarter with a revival in domestic demand and strong prices. The country's economic indicators suggest that our economy has come back to Q2 of last year's levels, and with the exception of a few sectors like the hospitality industry and the travel industry, other sectors are indicating strong future growth also. Most steel majors are now at production levels exceeding that of the previous years, and they expect this position to continue. This indeed has a salutary effect on the minerals and mining industries, which are predecessors in the supply chain for steel. Therefore, a conclave like this is extremely timely and appropriate in helping us take stock as well as prepare for growth. Yesterday's discussions focused on the coal industry, touching on the areas of coal mining, power, and coal gasification. Today, we have very interesting discussions planned around the challenges of the neo-normal, building Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India, strategies for the iron ore industry, and on the role of metallurgical coal and scrap as raw materials for steel. The long-term plan for steel is to take it to a level of 300 million tons to match the projected demand by 2030. And we are, as an economy, definitely on the way there. In spite of all the ups and downs that have happened over the last several years, if you look at the long-term trend for steel, it has shown steady growth. Underlying this is the large-scale urbanization that is happening in the country, which requires large-scale developments in infrastructure, connectivity, ports, projects. So all these really portend a very bright future for the industry, and therefore it is very important that the entire connective, let's say, industries that are part of that supply chain also need to have plans in sync with this growth. The COVID pandemic has also thrown up interesting insights and lessons for all industry. We have realized that we have much greater resilience than we ourselves thought we had. And the way that the industry has been operating, all manufacturing industry has been operating with much constrained levels of manpower, severe restrictions on movement of people or attendance of people, but still being able to achieve levels of production and capacity utilization at which are higher than last year, point to an inherent strength in the basic structure of the business and industry, which will stand us in good stead going forward. The new normal has also thrown up major challenges relating to how we evaluate and measure work, how we work, and how we motivate and challenge people. Such day touches on facing the challenge of the neo-normal and beyond. Now, I take great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Sushim Banerjee, Chairman of the Metals Committee of the Bengal Chamber. I am also equally delighted to welcome the esteemed participants of our first business session. First of all, Mr. Partha Sengupta, former President, JSW Steel, and Mentor Metals Committee of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are grateful to him for supporting and mentoring this initiative over the past several years. We will be having the pleasure of Mr. Sengupta moderating the first session. I would like to welcome Soma Mandal, Director Commercial and Chairman Designate of Steel Authority of India. And I have the pleasure of being her classmate in engineering. Mr. Dilip Oman, CEO, ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India. Mr. Pankaj Malan, CEO, Vedanta Electro Steel Limited. And Mr. Rajiv Mohan Sherry, MD of Outokumpu India. I am sure that we can look forward to a very engaging and fruitful set of discussions today. And once again, extend a warm welcome to all the delegates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would request Mr. Banerjee, if you may, kindly set the opening remarks.
Very warm good morning to Mr. Stefanos, the President-designate Bengal Chambers of Commerce and Industry, distinguished participants, particularly in the first session, ladies and gentlemen. We stand today almost at the end of the year 2020, the year that was unforgettable for taking more than 1 million lives, thrown hundreds of millions out of work, and is projected to wipe out 28 trillion valued worth of in output over the next 5 years. Indian economy, as Stefanos has just said, that went down by nearly 24% in Q1, has moved up quite a bit to clock 7.5% decline in Q2. The IMF and RBI have projected India's GDP to grow by 7.5% in the current fiscal. Indian steel industry, whose health and growth are very much linked with the growth in construction and manufacturing activities, is gradually showing a resilience to move up from the damages suffered due to the pandemic. As production of steel depends on availability of raw materials in right price and quality, this 2 days webinar by Bengal Chambers and Commerce, by putting emphasis on the current health of iron ore and coking coal industry, including the role of technology and innovative practices to enhance the availability of these very precious natural resources, would enable the esteemed participants to take a holistic view of the steel industry's growth perspective. Yesterday's webinar was very interesting. It mainly spent on coking coal and the issues that was discussed, among other things. There was a special discussion on coal to syngas, which is a combination of hydrogen and carbon monoxide, and which would further be converted to methanol. It can be used to make DRI, urea, and other chemical products. JSPL has been the path-breaking innovator in this and already successfully implemented this at their Angul plant. And the government of India, we understand, recently has announced 100 million tons of non-coking coal to be used for coal gasification, which is a tremendous opportunity for India to cut down their import of non-coking coal and also reduce carbon emission. Based on the trend of the new normal, the likely steel consumption in the current year, we estimate of approximately 85 million ton, and this would need around 10.5% growth per annum to reach 230 million tons of finished steel by 2030-31, which would require a capacity creation of 300 million ton as indicated in the National Steel Policy of 2017. This is a very tall target as of now. However, there are a few positives and the strategic thrusts that the industry can undertake with the corresponding policy support by the government to realize this apparently difficult target. First, we must enhance the steel intensity in major end-using segments like housing, infra, in roads, railways, ports, airports, transportation of oil and gas by developing appropriate steel-intensive designs, steel composite technology like light gauge steel frame in housing, standard designs for road overbridges in national highways and expressways, steel-intensive road infrastructure, steel sheet piles in port development, steel casing pipes for transportation of oil and gas, etc. This would ensure new product development, low volume, and high performance steel. Secondly, make the clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat by developing indigenous capabilities in capital goods and special steel segment and ensuring participation in the global value chain to take care of the economies of scale operation. The production linked incentive scheme, PLI scheme for specialty steel for the next 5 years, recently announced by the government, must be explored in full by Indian steel industry. Make in India for defense equipment, weapon systems, submarines, enhancing local content component in automobile and auto components would throw up stiff challenges for Indian steel sector to develop requisite capabilities. Steel is sustainable, recyclable, and provides much faster construction for strong and durable construction. Provides design flexibilities in all types of environment and follows mandatory BIS norms. Lastly, the potential use of steel in rural areas like metal roofing, steel frame low-cost houses, primary health centers, school building, etc. must be realized in full by the producers, dealers, and distributors connected with production and marketing of steel. The primary challenge before the steel producer is to reach the nooks and corners of the country where the government-funded schemes for affordable housing and credit-linked subsidy schemes for housing are being implemented. It is necessary to interact with the beneficiaries of the government subsidies and other stakeholders, be it designer professionals, developers, construction agencies, project management bodies, and apprise them of the advantages of steel-intensive houses and as well as the long-term cost advantages of steel use, faster construction, water saving, resale value, etc. A big challenge is to set up off-site quality fabrication facilities surrounding the construction areas. It is also necessary to impart skill training for steel-based fabrication. Easy raw material availability of iron ore and non-coking coal, especially in the steel clusters, and enhancing the coal washing facilities to blend with imported coking coal are the issues that would require policy intervention by the government. Lastly, before I end, I must put on record that under the able and dynamic leadership of the Honorable Minister of Steel, Sri Dharmendra Pradhanji, who will be addressing us in the valedictory session today, the Ministry of Steel has all along been extremely supportive to take forward the causes of Indian steel industry. And I'm sure it would continue to provide necessary policy support to act as an enabler for Indian steel industry to realize its goals. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Partha Sengupta, former President, JSW Steel and mentor of Metals Committee, Bengal Chamber of Commerce, to take the session forward. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the participants and speakers on the second day of this Minerals, Mining and Metal E-Conclave. While other speakers have recapped what we spoke yesterday, just want to highlight the whole day's discussion in 3 key points. First was that there was deliberations and it was felt by the esteemed group that coal is here to stay for the foreseeable future. That means over the next 20 to 30 years as the key source of energy, while our emphasis will be to drive towards renewables, but coal will continue to play an important role in the as an energy source for the next foreseeable future. The next point that was talked about and deliberated was that commercial mining is an important step towards meeting the expanded demand. It is expected that the energy demand would require a lot of extra coal, and it is obviously not within the capabilities of Coal India alone to supply the entire quantities, and therefore it was felt that commercial mining is a very important step towards meeting the expanded needs of energy, and therefore it should be handled and managed well. The third, as Mr. Sushil Banerjee spoke about it, that means coal gasification is a key ingredient towards clean energy for the future. We had speakers from across the globe, including the US, who briefed us of the latest technologies as we move ahead. So this is, in short, the quick points that we discussed on the three key aspects as of yesterday. Today, as Mr. Stefanos outlined, we talk about the Indian steel industry. What's its futures, and what are the strategies to meet key raw materials? The strategies to meet its key raw materials like iron ore, metallurgical coal, and obviously scrap, with an increasing presence of secondary steel in the market. These are all important raw materials, and the steel industry needs to grapple with the problems and issues concerned so that the flow of material continues unabated to meet our ambitious targets. Steel, not so long ago, was a controlled duopoly of Steel Authority and Tata Steel. And very often we had people who termed it as a sunset industry, as a value-destroying industry. However, today, several years later, as we look back, it has grown into a vibrant 100 million ton entity, with newer players like JSW, JSPL, ArcelorMittal, and Vedanta raring to go. So the entire consideration that it was a sunset industry and a value-destroying industry is completely being proved wrong. Steel is an important pillar in our vision of the $5 trillion economy, and the output has been pegged at 300 million tons in the near future. And therefore, it's an important target to aim for all the steel makers of India. The steel industry, therefore, needs to rediscover itself, as Mr. Sushil Banerjee was talking about, not only to increase production, which is a unidimensional view, but also to play an important role in managing the supply dynamics, enhance customer value, and trigger market growth with enhanced per capita usage of steel. And it has to be obviously backed by a manageable cost and cost control initiatives through innovative approaches. So all of this, managing the market, managing the supply, and managing the costs, are important pillars which will determine the future success of steel industry. India is endowed with one important element that is required for the steel industry, which is iron ore reserves. It is endowed with good quality iron ore. How does the industry leverage this asset? And how does it attract investments to become a significant part of the global supply chain? And it is indeed a challenge to be overcome as we move ahead. It's my privilege to moderate this session, which is therefore titled as Indian Industry Facing Challenges of the New Normal and Beyond. To discuss this subject, I would like to welcome on panel our very distinguished speakers. Mrs. Soma Mandal, Director Commercial and Chairperson Designate of SAIL. As the paper said, that she has broken not the glass ceiling, but the steel ceiling. And we would like to extend our sincere congratulations to her and wish her a very good future. We have Mr. Dilip Oman, CEO of ArcelorMittal India. Welcome, Mr. Dilip Oman. We have Mr. Pankaj Malan, CEO of Vedanta Electro Steel Limited. Welcome, Mr. Pankaj Malan. We have also with us Mr. Rajiv Mohan Sherry, who is the MD of Outokumpu India, who will give us his insights into the special steels aspect of Indian steel industry. A very warm welcome we have also Mr. Ranjan Dhar joining us, who is the CMO of ArcelorMittal India. Welcome, Mr. Ranjan Dhar, to this session. Once again, a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us for this session. We are indeed very grateful to have you with us. The way we will handle the logistics of this session is that we will break it up into 4 slots for 4 speakers, approximately 15 minutes each, in the total 1 hour, 5 minutes that we have remaining. And we shall end it up with a short question and answer sessions. I am sure there'll be lots of people who will want to ask questions of you of this very erudite and very august panel. We will therefore start with the questions that we have set for you, and we request you to put in the answers. There is only one small request from Mr. Dilip Oman. I guess he has to handle he has to attend a board meeting subsequently. So therefore, I would first address the questions to Mr. Oman, and Mr. Dhar would stay with us to answer any queries thereof. Is that okay, Mr. Oman? Is that fine with you?
Good morning and thank you very much.
Okay. The questions that we have for Mr. Oman was, as a new entrant to the Indian steel market, what has been the learnings of ArcelorMittal from this COVID experience? And how does ArcelorMittal see the Indian market sustaining and expanding in the near future?
As far as COVID-19 is concerned, whether it is ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel or any other entity, it has been a surprise pandemic to all. So everyone was caught on the wrong foot. But how agile, how nimble-footed we are was dependent on the organizations in the different geographies. The pandemic, COVID-19, has been, it came up with in such proportion that it was unheard of, unthought of. So, but then I think the Indian steel industry coped with it pretty well. For us, Mr. Partha Sengupta, just to correct, it is not ArcelorMittal India, it is ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India. It's a joint venture of ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel.
Yeah,
and
right.
As you are aware, between them, they produce about 10% of world steel. I just thought I'll put that in the right perspective. Now coming back to COVID-19, for us, the most important was the safety and well-being of our employees. Everything else came secondary. That was paramount. And we worked together with our suppliers and with our customers, exchanging information on what best we could do to improve the situation, to improve the preventive and control measures of that were required to combat COVID. That was the only way, because there was no vaccine, no medicines. So how do we control the spread? And we put in place very quickly a host of measures to control the spread. And it helped us greatly. Not only was it important for us, but we also had to make sure that our suppliers were also incorporating the same measures. And we spread, out of goodwill, we spread the initiatives to our customers as well. Now, I think it was around 24th or 25th of March, when the lockdown was announced. Obviously, the effect was quite catastrophic because everything came to a standstill. It depends on which location you are in. At least where we were operating, the effect was quite severe.
in Gujarat. But our pellet plants we managed to keep it operational. But the good thing is we immediately strategized on, under the present circumstances, what needs to be done. So we found out the right locations, found out the right products that which we had to export to remain in the game. So for example, we exported pellets during this time because we exported steel during this time because there was a total demand destruction in the first couple of months. I will summarize by saying that whatever we did paid off. By, I said 25th of March lockdown, by middle of May, we were at 100% capacity utilization in all our assets. So it was incredible. I mean, the only people I will congratulate is the employees of AMNS who got around working as a team to deliver what they did deliver, and obviously the government machinery that went out of the way to help us keep running. Now you asked, how do you see the Indian market sustaining and expanding in near future? Clearly, ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel is keen on expanding in India, of increasing the footprint in India. And one good and bad thing is that the steel consumption in India is so low. The per capita steel consumption is bad because it's low. It's good for the steel industry because it can improve drastically. Even to reach the global average, it'll take a while, but that's a long way. Where is 78 and where is 225? 78 is what it is today in India. 225 is the global average, not to talk about advanced countries. So there's a long way to go and a huge scope for the steel industry in India. So we are quite bullish on the future of the steel industry in India. One issue that has come up, even though I heard Mr. Partha Sengupta talking about iron ore being the strong point of the steel manufacturers in India, but unfortunately, with the after the auction, what we find is that there is a severe shortage of iron ore in the state of Odisha, and I believe all the steel industries, many of the steel industries are today handicapped because of iron ore availability in that sector, especially the logistics. Having said this, the government of Odisha is working hard to ensure that those bottlenecks are removed, and the government of India is also working on how to remove the bottlenecks. I'll not talk about the price because price has gone through the roof for iron ore, but even the availability is affected. That's all, Mr. Sengupta.
Thank you, Mr. Oman. I would just like to follow up with one more question, which is that being a combination of two global giants, which is ArcelorMittal and Nippon, how do you see India and the Indian steel industry being a part of the global supply chain, and how does it play a significant role in this going forward?
See, very rightly asked, apart from the volume that it produces, the advantage is that both ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel are industry leaders in the space of innovation, quality, and sustainability. While we are talking about coal and coal being used in the next 30 years, I have a little different opinion. Coal can be used, should be used, because India is rich in coal. But we have to make sure that learning from the COVID experience, that we take care of the environment, we protect the environment. We have to take all possible steps to reduce our carbon footprint. And this is obligatory for all the steel industry, for all the players. And while we use coal, we have to ensure that we don't increase the carbon footprint. The emissions are kept under control so that our future generations don't have to go through the same struggle that we went through, what we went through during the COVID period. We are, obviously, there is no steel that between these two companies that we do not manufacture. So that is good news for India. I mean, we can look at a good way of pursuing Atmanirbhar Bharat. There should be, a few years' time, there should be no reason why should we be importing steel into India. We should be in a position to manufacture all the steel that is being imported currently in India itself. Right now, our first intention is to double up while we are expanding our pellet capacity to 20 million tons, we want to, at stage 1, double the production in Hazira in Gujarat. And then we will be looking at both brownfield and greenfield opportunities going forward.
Thank you. And one last quick question. That means, which is that in India's journey to the 300 million capacity, what do you see as the Indian competitive canvas, the emerging Indian competitive canvas?
What is the competitive landscape? Yes, one canvas. One is we have a young growing population. So with the right skilling and training, we should have abundant resource of people to employ in the steel industry. Second, at this point I've already covered, it's a growing market and it'll grow very rapidly. Now I'm not sure whether we reach 300 million by 2030, because that will ask for a big CAGR, which we may not be able to accomplish. But we will reach 300 million for sure at some point of time. As I understand, Niti Aayog is working out when we will reach, but it'll be, I think it'll be around maybe a couple of years, 3 years later, but we will definitely reach. We have seen during the COVID that rural India market held on. The tractor sales was very robust. The farming equipment sales was quite robust, and that kept us going. Then, very surprisingly to all, the auto industry sprung back into action. And even if you look at November, month on month, there is a 29% increase in sales, retail sales, though the figures are not confirmed yet. And year on year, also there was an improvement of 4%, even as late as November. Month on month, there has been an improvement. The only issue is commercial vehicles. There is still a 30% drop, but that is also, the good thing is even there it is picking up. And obviously tractor was also about 8% higher than last year. So the good thing is that rural has been strong, remains strong. Auto has picked up quite to the astonishment of all. Construction is picking up, and infrastructure is, though not picked up to the extent we want, but it has shown signs of improvement. So there is no reason why we should not why the Indian steel industry should not be picking up, why the market should not be picking up. And I think this Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative has been quite successful. And in fact, I didn't want to say hugely successful, but I think it's going in the right direction. And this will be a very big incentive, apart from the PLI, production linked incentive, that 6,322 crores that is kept for the steel industry. I think that will also provide an incentive for the domestic steel industry to grow. And this is additional capacity. So additional capacity, additional sales has to take place to get the PLI. So this is an incentive to grow. I think that will happen. And then the MSME sector, we all need to take care of the MSME sector, which was affected during COVID. So I believe the steel players are helping the MSME sector. As far as AMNS is concerned, we are helping them through our hypermart network, and also we have launched e-sales for them so that they are able to use and avoid the middlemen, so that they can directly buy the steel from us.
Thank you, Mr. Oommen. I think I'd like to thank you for being a part of this panel. I'm sure there will be some questions, and which probably as you mentioned, Mr. Ranjan Dhar would take over. Thank you very much for your participation.
You're welcome, Mr. Sengupta. I enjoyed being with you, and I enjoyed your questions as well. And Ranjan Dhar is more capable than me to answer the questions that might come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our next panelist, Mrs. Mandal of SAIL. At the outset, Mrs. Mandal, I'm extremely sorry that we had to change the sequence, and I was not able to inform your office. So my apologies. I'm extremely sorry for that, and I hope you would kind of accept that apology on behalf of BCCI. Thank you, Mrs. Mandal. Congratulations to you once again for this wonderful achievement. We'd just like to stick around for 3 questions. And I think I would like to repeat to you the issue of the steel demand, which is showing an encouraging pickup. Most of the speakers, as you heard, as was discussed yesterday, that there is an uptick as far as the demand is concerned. And we would really like to know from you the demand drivers which are active, and how do you see them panning out over the next 3 to 4 years? Because it's not merely the recovery that we are talking about, but we are talking about enhanced GDP growth, as most of the investments people are talking about, of 8 to 9% and above for India in the next few years to come. So in that perspective, if you could give us some insights.
Good afternoon. And first I would like to wish my fellow classmate, Mr. Stephanus, Abraham Stephanus. I think he's still there. Yes.
Thank you very much, Soma.
And my fellow panelist, and Mr. Partha Sengupta. See, the steel consumption of India had been growing pre-COVID. In fact, last year it had been a roller coaster where there was a dip in demand because it started with the US-China trade war, and there was a dip in demand within the country also. So between August between August to November, most of us had reduced production. But after November, mid-November, demand really picked up, and we really thought everything would be really very good. And that was pre-COVID. The steel consumption in India, as you see, we are the second largest consumer in 2019 at around 103 million tons. That is as per WSA. Now the restoration of activities have taken place, and in steel, we have seen a V-shaped recovery. The basic demand over the period of time initially was from the rural. We saw the rural pickups in the tractor sales. We saw that in the agri equipment sales, and that basically came up because of shortage of labor and also push from producers. The infrastructure, including highways, you have the government push for all the projects and constructions. The CPSE is doing the best as far as the capex. The capex is concerned. We are all of us are trying to achieve the capex committed, or even, if possible, do more than that, and also planning for the next year also. The automobile sector, the basic requirement became the need for mobility, need for safety, because of which initially we saw the scooter and the cycle demands come up. Now the personal vehicles demand has also come up. Only thing which has not come up is the commercial vehicles. That would, I think, come up along with the other restoration of other, maybe the rail sector, the traffic there. The white goods sector, there was a pent-up demand, and coupled with the festival season, this demand has also really picked up over the last few months. Two major developments are defining the steel demand. One is the government intervention through various schemes, including the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Secondly, the adequate liquidity in the market. Global demand for steel, globally, you will see it would be hardly be 1.2% or so. That is what is forecasted between 2018 to 30. But the strong demand would be expected in India and other developing nations. The limited addition of capacity which is expected in the next few years would see that the current global capacity overhang would get closed by 2025. For us, the constant demand drivers would be construction, infrastructure, automotive, engineering, fabrication. We expect, in fact, I was seeing one of the Niti Aayog's figure also, beyond 2021, we would see it's between 7.5 to 8, more than 8% could be the driver, a tentative calculation beyond 21. There is a dip this year, but beyond 21, that would be the growth rate. So here is where we expect the growth to come from.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful. As we also meet consumers of steel, there is a lot of concern in the consumer industry, and which was actually summed up yesterday in some of the newspapers that I was reading, which we are saying that many industries are planning to up their prices to us. So finally, we consumers are at the receiving end, where it is expected that our refrigerators and ACs and all that we use for steel is going to go up, essentially because of the cost push that is there from the steel industry. And of course, as is always true, steel industry will always say that we are being pushed by our suppliers, namely iron ore and the rest of it. So as consumers, I think as consumers of steel, not us only, but also consumers of steel, as you mentioned about all the key industries like automobile and agriculture and all the rest of it, everybody is cribbing, if I may use the word. And yet again, I saw today that there's another 4,000 rupees increase which is being planned, which is nice for the bottom line of the steel industry, good for return on capital of steel. Being a part of the steel industry, I feel happy for that. But I think as consumers, we also need to listen to what is being talked about. So, ma'am, what is your view, and how do you think this aspect going to pan out over the next few months, or where do you see the direction moving, and is it always going to be one way? Obviously, steel is cyclic. I wouldn't say that, but once the normal moves up, then everything moves up along with it. So there's a lot of noise, and I was just wondering how you are planning to take that on.
See, let us first understand how does a price move in any commodity or steel. It is basic. Historically, it had been only supply and demand. Subsequently, geopolitical, economical, global economic impact, trade between two countries, trade barriers, all that has impacted the price, including the prices of raw material, which does give a cost push to our products. It's an open economy. Steel is a deregulated sector. Our domestic prices are impacted by international prices, besides the market forces of demand and supply within the country. Currently, the prices in overseas market has been perking up, and so is our domestic market. Domestic market is because of the sentiments of global as well as the supply and demand position in the domestic market. If you really look at it, we cannot overlook the cost of the input material, global prices. Why is the global prices so high? There is an increase in demand in countries like China or many other countries post-COVID. But we have to understand there is a cost push also, a major cost push. Today you have iron ore prices around 150, which we could have never imagined. It's nearly 1.5 times of what the cost of coking coal is today. So having seen that the cost of input material, the global prices, Indian prices cannot be insulated to that. It is a market which depends on the global prices and the domestic supply-demand side. Okay, now coming to the domestic, okay, because of the perked up demand in the domestic market, we producers, we have reduced our export exposure. It's not that we are exporting and increasing the domestic prices. All of us have reduced export substantially to ensure that the availability of material is there in the domestic market. But if you look at it, what was the domestic supplies? If you look at April to November, the big six, the main primary producers, there was a reduction by around 10% reduction in production as compared to corresponding year last year. And in the secondary sector, the reduction was around 22%. But if you consider just November, all of us have increased our production. And if you consider just November, the top six, the primary producers have increased by nearly 8%, and secondary producers is still low by around 5.5%. There's a net increase November over CPL by around 2.7%, around 3%. Consumption between April to November, there has been a cumulative shortfall of around 21%, but just November, the increase is 11%. This I'm saying just to tell you that there has been an increase in demand in the country also. And there has been, if you really in totality, a reduction in availability not because of the primary sector, because of the challenges which the secondary sector face, which includes various aspects, including raw materials maybe, and along with that labor, etc. So we will come back to pre-COVID. We have already crossed the pre-COVID production levels. Market will stabilize. But once the steel producing countries achieve the optimal production levels of supply and global supplies of iron ore stabilizes, there would be another issue of the Australian-China trade issue also. With this, once it stabilizes, I would expect the steel prices also to stabilize at a level in the months to come. But this would also depend on how economy around the world stabilizes post-COVID, how the COVID impact is moving. We do not know whether COVID is going to come back again, how fast the vaccination is going to take place. So it all depends on all that, but I would see more stability in the near future.
Thank you, ma'am. That's very reassuring. I think our customers who would be who would be listening to you will feel happy about it, and I'm sure and I hope that it moves that way. Now, let me move you to another subject, which is that India is planning and has got, as we heard from our earlier speakers, we have our clear target of 300 million tons of steel in the near future. While it may not be on the date that is thought about, but within a plus 5 years or so, we are all planning to reach 300 million tons of steel. So let me ask you, as one of the important players who contribute to the supply side, what's more difficult? Which means in this 300 million, where do you see the real problem? Is it from the demand or is it from the supply side? Because building capacity in India is always a very daunting task. And we had Mr. Naveen Jindal yesterday also, who spoke about how difficult it is to put up plans considering all the issues that are concerned. So therefore, what really pushes home, and where do you see the problem? And what, in your view, should be done, or how do you see these problems to be overcome, which is going to be a key element of trying to get to 300 million?
The national steel policy envisages a crude steel capacity of 300 million tons, out of which we are already at 140 plus. It envisages the finished steel domestic consumption would be around 206 million tons and around 24 million tons of exports, if you read the national steel policy. So that brings it to around 230 million tons of production, because we would assume that our capacity utilization throughout the country would not be at levels of 100% naturally. Globally, generally it would be around, sometimes when demand is low, maybe less than 80, and if demand becomes higher, it will become more than 80. That's what happens when you consider a whole geographical area. It also envisages around 20% to be through the electric arc furnace route and around 10% to be through the IF route. Plus, I think 2% through the other routes. As I've mentioned earlier, demand would not be a problem. When NPS was, National Steel Pole, NSP was done, you would see they have worked out very clearly each segment expecting what would be the growth rate. And after that, they have come to a capacity. With the thrust in in infrastructure, the various schemes of the government, and also the rapidly growing economy, I wouldn't expect a major issue from the the demand side. The steel capacity today is around 142 million tons, and we have to scale it up to 300 million tons. This will call for a big ticket investment. And it is said for each in a integrated steel plant, the total integrated, each cost of 1 million ton costs around 6,500 crores for each million ton. So it depends on how big the plant is, could be less. But if you take a thumb rule of 6,000 to 6,500 million tons, you can imagine the scale of investment which is required. We'll also have to build linkages of raw material, iron ore, coking coal. So as far as the iron ore is concerned, there would be challenges of securing not only the mines, also getting all the necessary clearances, whether it's forest clearances, environment clearances, within the scheduled time. Industry players have been working along with government to make investment in steel attractive. There are disabilities, I'm sure this has been discussed in your conference, which is plaguing the steel industry, which is high infrastructure cost, high logistics cost, low infrastructure, high finance cost, discouraging tax structure across the value chain, high power tariffs, and these are among the major causes. These are being discussed at various levels, and solutions, we are trying to find out solutions to that. But when I would consider the major challenge would come from the availability of land. That's my perception. There are a lot of brownfield expansions being planned now, but there's limitations to what can be through brownfield route. As per press report, JSW is planning a major greenfield expansion in Odisha, but the land availability within the private players could become a major issue. Of course, as you have seen that around 20%, around 60 million ton capacity is being planned through electric arc furnaces route. So for that, we would require the scrap, not only the scrap policy being implemented in a spirit, but also the availability of physical, because for India, the steel industry is not a very old industry. So availability of scrap is not much. So what the national steel policy envisages is both integrated steel plants and small plants also. So far as I would feel that the main challenge would come from maybe the land acquisition, the various availability, not only availability, iron ore is available to getting all the necessary clearances. So far as the growth goes, India holds real promise. You have government initiatives like Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, the PLI scheme, which has been declared recently, is very interesting. This will all go a great way to attract a lot of investments and domestic and FDI. Government is taking measures to facilitate the industry, including raw material security. If there are a lot of auctions of mines, both commercial as well as for in-house consumption, logistics and banking reforms are taking place, banking reforms to help the MSME industry, because it's not about only producing steel, manufacturing you manufacture steel, you should have the MSMEs who would be the consumers of your steel also. So there are a lot of reforms in the MSME sector. I would reiterate that government investment in various infrastructure development initiatives would have a multiplier effect. So demand of steel, I do not consider would be a major impact. It would be the supply side constraint which would come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Mandal, and once again I would apologize for the reversal of the schedule as was planned.
Can I leave for the day? I have some.
Yes, please. I mean, no problem.
Thank you so much.
We would thank you so much. And if there are any questions, we will send it to your office or your secretariat. And sincere thanks for taking time off. I know how busy you are, for taking time off and for your being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, please. Stephanos, you are muted.
Thank you very much. So much good to
thank you.
see you and hear you on screen.
Good to see you also. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we should be planning a get-together of old associates or old kind of classmates, I think, where we can all participate.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Your replies were very insightful. Thank you. We move on to Mr. Pankaj Malan. Welcome, Mr. Pankaj Malan.
Thank you, Mr. Sen Gupta, for having me.
Thank you. It was indeed wonderful. And you represent, I think, the organization which is one of the latest entries into steel. And it is a kind of, what should I say, as an integration of the already existing business that you have been in India for a long time, which is iron ore mining. So wonderful. And let me ask you the obvious, which means that having just entered into the steel industry, how did really COVID affect you? And what are the steps you took so that you could manage the short-term, let's say disruptor?
Sure. I think we entered steel 2 years back and we acquired Electro Steels Limited through IBC process. So Vedanta being essentially a non-ferrous player, but then of course we were having iron ore mines, so it made all logical sense to move towards the downstream side of that. So we were doing well when we took over, and of course there was some slowdown in the industry itself last year. So we had a terrible bad time. Of course, the demand level started looking well from November last year onwards and was picking up month-on-month basis till 24th March, when lockdown was announced because of COVID, and which impacted our supply chains and the demand level in the country even. Yeah, when COVID hit us, and we've been essentially a long product player, the very first priority for us was to ensure the safety and well-being of the employees. So that foremost task which we had put in place as our foremost plan, I think that worked wonders for us. Our employees became the champions of turning around the business during that difficult period. We were into, or we are still into long products, and we are essentially making TMT bars and wire rods. At that time when lockdown hit us, I think the demand in the country was too low, and production also went almost to 1/3 levels for most of the players in the industry. We were quick to make sure that we look for alternate ways and realign our product portfolio with the demand levels and the customer preferences. We could go across the borders. That was for the first time that we could do that, and I think we were able to manage our volumes in Q1 itself intact. But yes, we did see some product portfolio change. The action plan that we have put in place for our own employees, I think that worked very well. Post-COVID, of course, there is a change in terms of the working ways. Work from home has become a new normal, and that new normal is actually giving us a lot of insights what exactly needs to be done in the operations itself and in the businesses also. So a lot of automation focus and digitalization focus has actually come up. And we as an organization are also looking heavily into digitizing our business processes and even the plant automation systems. Post-COVID, one thing which we did, and we migrated ourselves to SAP HANA, which improved the mobility of the employees. And we also personally think going forward, post-COVID, the competition intensity is going to be with the players who are going to be more digital savvy on the front end. Competition was there and it is going to be there, but yes, how much differentiated in terms of your offerings you can bring to the customer, that is going to be the key. So net, in terms of our product portfolio, we are back to our pre-COVID levels. Demand is not an issue right now for the long products. Over last month, and the prices have also started seeing some good momentum in terms of long products. And we are very, very hopeful that we would be able to sustain our full capacity utilizations at the current level. And we would also be, positive and bullish about the prices going into next 2 quarters.
Great. It's very interesting that you talked about digital and automation and the emphasis on that and the change that is happening in the industry because of that. So in a way, we heard you say that digitally enabled companies are likely to be more competitive and agile to handle such changes that we move around. That's great. I think that's a very interesting observation, which actually brings me to a very key question in the portfolio that you are existing, which is namely the long product. And I think it's no discovery that long product industry is strewn and filled with lots of people of various kinds. Some who are on the IF route, some who are on the arc furnace route, some who are on the blast furnace route, some you have re-rollers and you have patras and you have, name it and you are there. And mostly they are in long products in terms of TMT. Of course, wire rods are far less. So therefore, there has always been a concern in the quality of the long products that has been there in the market. Very often, common house builders or users of long products have been conned into buying products which are not very safe. If you remember look back a little bit in time, the Ahmedabad earthquake which happened, which took down a lot of buildings, actually exposed it, that how the unorganized sector is playing havoc as far as the industry, as far as the construction industry is concerned, and the lives of people. So thereafter, of course, there has been some restrictions, some kind of BIS standards, which was always there, but at least being implemented. So the question to you is that while you said that COVID brings in digital agility based on digital, where do you see this going? I mean, what do you see the emergence of this industry? It's a very important industry, and as Mrs. Mandal also said, that a good 20-30% is still going to be through the electric steel route of the 300 million. So therefore, it has continued to be important. It has got a lot of industries in the MSME who qualify to be in the MSME, and therefore it's important for employment. So where do you see this transformation going? How do you see the industry changing?
Okay, I think there's a lot of focus, post-COVID, what we have personally realized, so we are making steel through a primary steel route. But then we also have a lot of regional players, especially in the TMT segment, which you also mentioned. A market size where somewhere around 27-28 million tons of steel TMT demand is there. So 45% of the odd demand is being met by the primary steel producers. So more than half of the market is being fed, and largely these players are regional and local players. I would say one thing which have gone very well with some of the regional and local players is the kind of marketing push which they have created and the kind of distribution networks they have created. Especially when I really look onto the eastern side, their kind of distribution networks are really good. While it is taking time for a lot of steel players, especially established ones, steel players, they have their own distribution channels. It's equally difficult for the new ones to come up and start establishing their distribution channel to that level. So one thing which is doing rounds is how you can actually educate the customer, and this education would happen through a lot of marketing initiatives, which we as an organization have already started. Number one, and number two, we are also trying to now push our sales. We've been essentially B2B player. We are entering into B2C right now, and our push is through e-commerce activities more. We are just launching our e-commerce platform. And this e-commerce platform, coupled with the social media for the updation of the awareness of the customers in terms of the various standards, be it BIS or IS, I think that is very, very important. Both the mechanical and the chemical properties need to be made aware to the customers to a level where they understand what are they buying and how they're going to buy. One more thing which is really going to differentiate the players, primary producers, and very for the quality conscious customers is going to be with respect to the kind of offerings we are going to have. It's not going to be only the product, but also the solutions that we are going to sell across. So today, I think the time has come where the companies, and especially the steel companies, have to, I think like FMCG companies, and they have to embrace leading sales and distribution practices, which typically a FMCG company would be having. And, one thing which I also keep telling my folks is that we also need to start tracking the tertiary and the secondary sales. And we need to now get to the customers, not only with your products, which is typically a rebar or maybe a bench, but a solution, how we can actually contribute to their kind of requirements. So when you start getting to the customers with these kind of models on an e-commerce platform, on a digital platforms, and even with the solutions, I think there would be a lot of quality consciousness which can be brought in terms of awareness of the customers, and some kind of differentiated products. Typically, if I speak about TMT, I think the world was there at 450D. Then graduated to 500D, now 550, and now some of the players like us, we are talking about 600D. So you are upping the ante in terms of the quality also, where the steel intensity per unit area would be reducing. So which would be also putting some kind of entry barrier for the secondary steel producers, which are through EF routes, in terms of making sure they are not able to live up to those quality marks. But having said that, when the country is going to see almost 40% of the steel coming through EF or IF route, some kind of technology interventions is also equally important over there. Like one of my fellow panelists said that there are issues in terms of getting land, in terms of putting up the future projects. I think one of the important aspects is going to be EF and IF route. So we need to really look into the technology part over there also. because that technology part would be really helping us to balance out in terms of sustainability. Typically, a primary steel producer would be having almost close to 2.2 kilos of CO2 per ton of steel, but EAF or an IF route would be having almost 1/4 of that. So it's equally important that we start really relooking into those technologies and strengthening those areas also. So where we are also very keen in terms of getting into our foothold in terms of that area, because that would be faster to the market and closer to the customers. But yes, technology intervention is also equally important, and we are really evaluating those options also.
Great. I think that is that's actually the step in the correct measures. So the next and obvious question is, just having entered steel, where do you see yourself in the 300 million? It's a little futuristic, and I really don't want to pry on your company's plans. But I would definitely very interesting to hear what is a group like Vedanta thinking about its participation in the steel industry. How does it see its peer competitive, kind of canvas? What's your space, and what are you looking for really? Obviously, this is not a one-off foray; it's a well thought out foray.
I think it's a very good question for a group like Vedanta. If you really look into Vedanta's portfolio, we've been amongst the top 2 guys in the segment where we've been always. Be it zinc, copper, aluminium, oil, silver, everywhere we've been amongst the top 2. We've just entered into steel, and when we actually really relook into the competitive landscape, the top 4 possibly they're far ahead than us. Not easy to catch up with them, but our focus is not going to be on catching up with these guys, but important would be that how can we be sharper in terms of our product offerings, sharper in terms of our product portfolios. There are a lot of areas where the steel is still getting imported, so there are options existing over there to be having an entry point over there. So we are and we are still evaluating technology options over there, and that would be diversifying our product portfolio. But there are opportunities available. But yes, with NSP 2017 all around, with the thought of 300 million tons, I think there is a room which is existing. But we would be really loving to be a sharper, player than where we are today.
Thank you. I think that's a very nice view of the future. It laid out very clearly in terms of what are your future plans. So thank you, Mr. Pankaj Malan. Wonderful to speak to you. I would then move on to our next
Thank you,
speaker.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you so much. We would now move on to our next speaker, Mr. Rajiv Sherry. I think he is with us. Yes, that's right. So welcome to the discussion, Mr. Sherry. And while we have been talking about steel, and we've been talking about largely people who have been flat products or TMT and wire rods, I think you bring to the table a completely different, let's say, offering on the table, which is stainless steel. And obviously, I would extend that to say that it's specialized steel. And so therefore, the questions for you would obviously be slightly different in terms of the interest that you represent. And one of the first questions that we have for you is that where do you see stainless steel? We would like to consider that India is an emerging market of stainless steel. So how does COVID play out, or how did COVID play out from this, not only in terms of recovery, but also in terms of how it helps in driving future consumption and increase of stainless steel consumption in the market. In addition, if you could just give us a quick view of what the stainless steel market, it would be probably helpful to many of the listeners who are, just to give a quick view of what Indian stainless steel market is and how do you feel it's going.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me for this August panel today and sharing this session. So first of all, I would like to talk a little bit about stainless steel itself, because stainless steel, in my opinion, is a wonder metal because it has the properties that makes it very unique. So stainless steel is preferred mainly wherever you have a corrosive environment and you want to improve the life of your equipments. And the biggest advantage of stainless steel being that it is 100% recyclable material. And in that case, it has very low carbon footprint and the carbon dioxide emissions are also quite low. So stainless steel becomes a popular choice of the material when people are looking for a long service life of the material, where it is very easy to maintain and where you can have different kind of corrosive environments where the normal steel may withstand maybe for 5 years or 10 years, but stainless steel can be there for 20 years, 40 years, depending on the kind of grade that we use. So with that background, the total market for stainless steel globally is in the range of about 50 to 55 million tons. It is much smaller as compared to entire basket of steel. And in India, currently, if we take flat product and also long product, the total market is in the range of about 3 million tons. And Outokumpu, we are basically a company who innovated or started the stainless steel material. And our headquarter is in Finland, in Helsinki, and manufacturing plants are located in places like Finland, Sweden, Germany, USA, UK, Mexico, and operations and sales offices are in various countries. We are number one in terms of market share in Europe and number two in Americas. And in Asia, we play a significant role in specialty of stainless steel. So our market share for commodity stainless steel is low in Asia, but we focus on high-end applications in India. With this background, the impact of COVID, which we have seen in 2020. So if we compare Q2 of 2020, our sales were impacted by about 10%, and in Q3 they were reduced by about 20% on global basis. But we have already seen a very strong Q4 now, and also the demand during Q1 of next year is very bullish. And most of our plants are running with full capacity utilization now, and the lead times are going to 4 months or 5 months of lead time. And mainly the demand is coming back from automotive industry, for example, and also from appliance industry, where we are seeing that demand has suddenly increased. So the reason that it is possible that during the COVID time, that many people, they were holding on their purchases for automotive and appliances, and now they are more hopeful, and also they saved some money by not going on vacation, for example, or not having much opportunity to spend time in the restaurants or in the bars. So a lot of money probably was also saved working people from home. And now they have also realized that these kind of equipments becomes a part of our life, and people prefer to travel by private vehicles currently because of safety reasons. So demand for two-wheelers or cars, I think it is increasing globally, and people are spending more money for dishwashers, for refrigerators and other equipments. So now we have to be cautious. As I was saying, that demand has increased in Q4 and also very good in Q1. But still, we have to remain carefully optimistic, because the COVID still, it is not gone. And we are listening that now vaccination program has started in some countries, and it will start in our country also. But if there is another wave, or if there is something more, because now winter season is coming, and then we have to see that how the impact it is going to be. So we have to focus on cost controls and basically ensure that if the situation is repeating, then we are better prepared. And organization during such difficult times, they have to make sure that they can still maintain their bottom line.
Right. How do you see the Indian market? I mean, you talked about being in the high-end part of the industry, the stainless steel industry. But how do you see the Indian market panning out vis-a-vis, let's say, the growth that has happened in China? India also, it's showing an uptick, but where do you see it growing, and the demand for high-end products, or even commercial stainless steel for that matter? And what is your take on that?
So with the lot of advantage with the stainless steel, definitely it is a material of choice, and many places customers or end users, they are replacing other material like stainless steel in various applications. So we are expecting that stainless steel demand to increase globally by about 3 to 4%, and in India in the range of 8 to 10% growth in India. And if we see the past data also, stainless steel is the fastest growing metal if we compare with other peers like aluminum or copper or normal steel. So stainless steel is definitely outperforming other metals. And we are expecting the same thing will continue in future.
Great. I think that's interesting, because ideally speaking, it should. And I think some policies of the government has also aided this process, where they have shifted to life calculations rather than L1 calculations. And I think the railways and many other industries are changing it, which is good news, I think, in terms of the overall cost that is there of usage. Which brings me to a question, which is the second part, which is that if you see India growing at 8 to 10% and a stronger growth in the future, so when do we see a Outokumpu plant in India? We have got chrome ore, we have got iron ore, you heard a lot of that. There may be a temporary blip in availability, but I'm sure it's going to become good over time. So where do you see Outokumpu's role in India? Because with this Atmanirbhar push and the fact that we are growing to 300 million, so why is, what is Outokumpu planning as far as its production footprint in India is concerned?
Of course, India is a strategic growth market for Outokumpu, and it is company's strategy to improve footprint in India. And in our case, we have two major raw material for producing stainless steel. One is the recycled or scrap steel. So in our products, we have more than 85% of raw material as scrap, which we are recycling. And secondly is the chrome or ferrochrome. And Outokumpu, we are the only company with our own mines of chrome in Kemi, Finland. And this mine actually now supplying chrome to all Outokumpu units. And the chrome, I think in my opinion, now we have gone into expansion of the chrome mine. And earlier we were underground by half a kilometer, but now we are going under by 1 kilometer to extract the ore from the mine. So the life of this mine, in my opinion, is still 30-40 years plus. So that ensures that good quality chrome availability to Outokumpu for our operations. We also sell some part of our chrome ore to other customers currently. And for setting up a plant, of course, there are different stages that when you have the melting or whether you have hot rolling or cold rolling service centers. So these are the different steps. And we are basically focusing now, as of now, to see the opportunity to start with some downstream activity and then grow the market and bring it to some sizable scale and then take next step. So we already are working in India now for more than 14 years since we started our office in India, and we have a very strong technical team to provide service to our customers and give solution for their application. We are also supplying material through our warehouse operations in India. And next step, I think, will be to go for some kind of value addition in India.
Wonderful. I think that's a correct and a very good strategy. And we would be obviously very happy to have you have a service center of stainless steel in India. It would be a great development at stage one. And then as we grow our usage, so would be the growth of scrap in future. And someday we should be able to see an Outokumpu plant here, because we have got good mines here and good quality ore. So with that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you, Mr. Sherry, for your participation. I would just like to go back to Arnab to check if there are any questions for anybody.
So there are a few questions that I have asked. One was for Mr. Dilip Oman, which I'm sure Mr. Dhar would be able to answer that. The question that I have sent already to you, I'm reading it out, that there are two questions. If there be no increase in the public spending in the infrastructure sector, there is little hope in sustainability of the growth of steel industry. How do you look as the policy initiatives of the Government of India, state governments and PSUs in this direction? That is number one. Number two is, PLI is basically export linked. Does it really benefit the MSME sector, who contributes to the steel industry more aggressively? The second question particularly was meant for Mr. Dilip Oman.
Okay, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm just feeling like Kamala Harris. Mr. Oman has given me this role to suddenly answer for him, but I'll do whatever best I can. I think on your question whether public spending will be muted, it has been muted during the COVID phase of 2020. Our own understanding in our interaction with various government agencies and also the companies which are in the infrastructure space, be it companies like L&T and others, it will be fast-tracked in the year 2021 and beyond. I have always believed personally, and as our company's position also, that India does not have any option not to grow. So let us not be pessimistic about growth. We have to be focused on how to manage this growth in terms of investment and acceleration, and the right kind of growth should happen. I don't think we should be doubtful about India's growth, because we do not have an option. We have a young population. The population has needs. The population has job needs. So I think that said, all the agencies, including government, including public spending, will happen. Yes, it was muted in 2020 for obvious reason and probably genuine reasons. But I think 2021 onwards, you will see that happening back again. Now, the question always is, can we do better? Yes, of course. There are areas where we can accelerate further. There are areas we can do better. But that is a matter of detailing. But I think we are rightly positioned in terms of getting the growth back. Also in terms of public spending on infrastructure. I don't think it will remain like it was in the year of 2020 or slightly in the year 2019 as well. Now, about the PLI scheme, first of all, the PLI scheme is still under process. There is the cabinet approval. There are still discussions happening on that. I think it is not only export linked, it is investment linked. It is also substitution linked. So when you talk about MSMEs and all that, obviously, if you see, we should not look at PLI scheme only restricted from a restricted prism of steel industry. So PLI scheme is for auto industry, it is for auto component, and it is for steel. So when the user industry of auto component and other industries wherein a lot of MSME participation is there, and they do get benefited when their market opens for export, they need to be supported from indigenously made steel. that will get boost under this PLI scheme. And I think that whole scheme end to end sits very well, and I think it is well thought of, and it will bring an acceleration.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would request Mr. Partha Sengupta to kindly conclude the session with a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Arnab. Let me start by saying a quick thank you to our President-designate, Abraham Stephanus, who was with us through this session. He set the tone for the discussion in terms of flagging off that there has been a good recovery, and let us hope that it goes in the right direction. I'd like to thank Mr. Sushil Banerjee, who followed, who also mentioned about GDP increase and the good news surrounding the GDP. And he mentioned key features like the PLI, the government support to steel industry, the increase in rural usage, and particularly of training and the issue of washing of coal to a better larger amount of metallurgical coal in the country. A big thank you to all our speakers, Mrs. Mandal, Mr. Dilip Oman, Mr. Dhar, who filled in for him, Mr. Pankaj Malan, and Mr. Sherry. While I would have possibly liked to go through a quick summary of these, but I think time is running out. We are just past 1, and I would not like to be blamed as the one who is overshot. So I would like to thank every speaker for very insightful discussions that have been there. And indeed, it has given us a full view of the entire steel industry, focusing on the demand side and what has COVID taught us for the future. And it's been indeed very, very enlightening. And I'm sure all the listeners and all the participants in this seminar have gained enormously from it. I think I would be failing in my duty if I do not thank all the sponsors for this event. A big thank you to all the sponsors, and of course the BCCI support team for having conducted it today without any glitches. And I think it's a wonderful job to manage so many centers together. So it's been a great job. All in all, I think thank you very much. It was wonderful interacting with all of you. And I hope that the seminar carries on in the same way, and we can have a meaningful and a good outcome, which I think, Arnab, we should share with all the speakers when we make summaries.
Yes, sir. Sorry for interrupting you. Yes,
no, carry on. So
sir, we will, as discussed yesterday, we are preparing a proceeding with recommendations set that we'll be sharing with all the speakers soon. Of course, we have mentors like Mr. Stephanus, through which we will get a guideline for the set of recommendations that overall, whatever we have discussed throughout the day of yesterday and today, will make a summary, and a set of recommendations will be sent to the respective governments. That is what we have planned for, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So with that, we come to the end of this session.
Thank you,
once
sir.
again, a big thank you to everybody, and wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Partha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Partha.
Thank you. We'll be coming back again at 2 o'clock with the business session 1, building Atmanirbhar Bharat, ensuring Make in India future of steel industries in India. We have very eminent panelists and speakers, Mr. Anil Kumar Chaudhary, Chairman SEL, Mr. P.K. Bishnoi, former CMD RINL, Mr. P.K. Roth, Chairman and MD RINL, Dr. Vinod Nawal, Deputy MD JSW Steel Limited, Mr. Anil Anand, Managing Director Paul Worth India Private Limited. So stay tuned and please come back at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.